Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for deciding to follow me again on my journey into the world of pens. And we're visiting a place that we've visited before, a Moonman pen. Comes in this nice box. And they have an interesting saying, feel the temperature of writing. If we look at the side, we'll see, looks like an 800 there. And there's also purple in there. And a date of February 27th of 2020. So this pen is pretty new. There's also a label at the bottom. The box is labeled in many places. This is just more of an identifier. 208 won is the price. We'll take the lid off and we'll see the pen. As I said, substantial. Feels good. Nice gift box. Comes with instructions which we've seen before. Shows various filling systems that Moonman may use. The pen has another quality tag on it. Very reminiscent of higher end pens that have tags like this. We'll slip it off, put it aside, and we'll gaze at this pen because it is worth gazing at. It is a beautiful color resin, and what I like is it's not a color I have. I'd say it's a purple version of amber, and we'll compare it to the amber pen that I got prior to this one. The cap comes off with a little over one turn, but not much, and we'll see that section, which we're familiar with. A Moonman nib, which is the first. The one I had before had a Bock nib on it and cost more money. Here's the auction I got this one from. And it appears that Doug is right. The amber finish is only available with the Bock nib, and that's about a $20 upcharge to this one, which is probably what the Bock nib might cost the producers of the pens. I can stare at this all day, and one of the reasons why I chose purple is I really don't have a purple pen. Here's the other colors that the M800 comes in. I think they did a great job in selecting these resins. I like it. I'd say these are two extremely attractive pens. It's a wonderful world. It's nice to get a new pen in the mail. You got to look for our pleasures in the current crises that we seem to be going through. So I'm glad I have my pens, and I'm glad I can share them with you. These resins are similar. And, you know, they have that little black bits in it. They have the Chatoyan C. The base on this one is purple. The base on this is an amber color. That's pretty much the difference between them. The threads on the purple one work much better than the cap threads on the amber one, which, as Doug found on his Galaxy one, or the blue one. So I think they've maybe done a little bit of change to those threads, at least in this version that I have, that makes it work better. No matter what angle you look at this pen, it looks great. I have to admit, if I could only have one, I would choose amber over purple. But I'm certain there's many people out there that love purple, and for them the purple one might be the one that they would choose. I'm not as good as twirling over under the camera as some people might be, but I do my best. So I think it's time to ink it up and see how that Moonman nib works in the purple M800. So to me, purple is one of those colors that comes in many hues. So as we compare the purple cloud in the 323 with that purple resin used for the M800, we'll see a more red style of purple here and a more blue end of purple there. Both of these pens have their special appeal. So just as a reference point, here's my color wheel, which goes from blue to red, and in between they have violet. They don't call it purple, but they call it violet. As you can see, there's a red violet, a blue violet, a violet blue, so a range of colors. And this definitely fits into the red violet part of this color wheel, and this is more on the blue violet side. Here's the M800 disassembled as much as I'm going to disassemble it. I have to agree with Doug. This nib and feed pulled out of the section easily, but it didn't unscrew. And it certainly looks like inside here is that standard nib assembly that Moonman uses, but maybe because they glued in that brass insert, they also glued in the nib assembly. So it just doesn't mean you can't unscrew and unscrew, but you could easily replace the nib by just pulling out the feed. Standard converter. You know, I like the pen and I think it looks really good. I think we need the LED X-ray light. I've gone to just some diffuse sunlight coming in. Turned off my LEDs. So just want to appreciate this color, the chatoyancy. It is like amber, but it's purple. And it also has that translucency like amber does. Now you can see that light. And it does show off that resin. We'll come down with a top view. You can see there's also some pearlescence in there. I'm impressed. I mean, this is a resin I do not have. Pen BBS has not used it. They have a purple cloud, but it's not the same. It'd be interesting if they did make a pen out of this type of resin. You know, the cap is the same. I think they did a nice job. That resin's fairly thick. As we look inside, there's just a machined edge in there. I don't have any trouble with the amber one drawing out. I've been using it as an everyday pen for a while. And we get the same type of look as my LED cuts in and out with that LED X-ray inside the cap. It is a handsome pen. While we're talking about the Moonman M800, which comes with either a Bock nib or a Moonman nib, I thought we'd delve into a little bit about the nib assemblies that are in some popular pens. This one here is the Moonman. Here's a Bock. Here's a Jowo, Edison, but it's Jowo. And here's a Schmidt. These are all different nib assemblies here. Here's a little chart I put together that I use for nibs, and I've been adding to the chart. I got about 20 nibs on it now. And there is a lot of variation. Is the variation significant or not? Well, that's something that you can only tell when you start trying to swap nibs and pull nibs out and things of that nature. But the threads are all different here at the bottom. And also the way the cartridge or converter fits into the back is also different on all of these. So you can see the Jowo is just flat. If you look at the Bock, there's an insert there. So this will take a cartridge or converter with a wider diameter. This one needs one that fits both the inside diameter and the outside diameter. Looks like that opening is the same on all of these. If you look at the Moonman, we'll see it's kind of halfway in between the Bock and the Jowo. If you look at the Schmidt, again, it's a little bit of a different design. So you just can't unscrew and screw nibs in, at least from these four varieties. That's a shame, but that's the nature of the business. So what ink to put in the pen? This is an ink I haven't used in a while. Purple Martin. And I think it's a perfect match. If you look at the color card, we'll see it's a reddish shade of purple. No sheen. I laid this down pretty thick. Might get a little bit of shading, but not expected. And the chromatography is what you would expect. It's kind of a pinkish red and some shades of blue with a little bit of intensity there at the very, very top. And no water resistance is indicated by the chromatography. So overall, after spending a few days with this pen, I'm very happy with it. It feels good in the hand, like the amber one. So at least from these two examples, Moonman is extremely consistent in their build and quality. The cap coming off in a little bit over one turn is excellent. It feels fine in the hand without posting, and that would probably work for most people. If you do want to post, I'd say it posts fairly well. It stays on. It doesn't really change the balance much. We'll give you the weights. This section, like with the amber pen, is something I still need to get used to because I tend to slide off the bottom. You know, I prefer one sections with a little bit of an edge there that you can feel. And, you know, it pushes your fingers towards the nib. At least that's my feeling on the way that is shaped. We'll give you those dimensions. The threads you don't feel. The step up is there, but you don't really feel it. So you can kind of hold it anywhere. With that large number 6 nib, I think that's the place I'm most comfortable with. So I wanted to do back to back so you could hear it with the microphone just sitting over here to the left. The Moonman with the Moonman fine nib and the Moonman with the Bock fine nib. To me, these are two completely different writing experiences. They're both pretty wet. The Bock is actually a little wetter, but then this has Pen BBS ink in it. And this has Noodler's ink. And I think this ink is not as lubricated and doesn't flow as nicely as the Pen BBS nib does. But I do like the color, and it is fairly saturated and looks good. Here, the Bock nib just glides and flows, and for a fine nib, it is very, very smooth. So is it worth the $20 difference between the two? Will you get the same nib that I got? As people might say, mileage will vary. So at least from these examples, the Moonman nib gives you a lot more feedback. I wouldn't call it scratchy or anything else like that, but it's just more feedback. And this paper has a texture to it, so it really amplifies the feedback. But the Bock nib is much smoother by a good factor. So one of the things that I think about is how would somebody who doesn't love fountain pens as much as we do react to this pen, and I think they'd be quite impressed with it. The feel is good, the color's phenomenal, the design is, we might want to call it a classic, but it is a very Italian design. So let's rate this pen. I'm going to give it a 9.5. That's higher than I rated the amber. The cap threads on this are much better. I think the value is much better, and that adds 2 points to the 9.3 I rated the amber. Engineering, design, build, everything else is very, very good in this pen. And I am getting used to this section, even though it's not my favorite. So overall, I really like this pen. And doesn't bother me one bit that the design may not be as totally unique as other pens. But, you know, there's only so much you can do with a pen, and I'm certain Moonman looked at pens that are out there and being sold and said, that's a nice pen, let's see if we can make one like it, and they did. And not only like it, but in some ways improved on it. So I think that's kudos for that. And it's all turned acrylic. All the parts are excellent. They fit together well. That gold plating on all the parts it looks good. Looks like it'll hold up for a long period of time. So all pluses. We reached the end of this video. So thank you for watching. And before we sign off, I would be remiss if I wouldn't talk about the current pandemic that has the whole world changed quite a bit. We've now had a curfew put on New Jersey residents from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., which is pretty big curfew. And they're saying all non-essential businesses should close at 8, and if they want to stay open, they need to get an exemption. So it's not good. The light at the end of the tunnel is pretty dim right now, but we know we're going to get through it, and we know eventually we'll be back in the light, and normality will return. It won't exactly be the same normal that we had before this pandemic, but hopefully it's better. And that's my wish. So may you have many great writing experiences. Find something you enjoy writing with. We've reached the end of this video. And we're going to say bye until the next video. You can hear that nib, but it does lay down some nice ink. And it is a little soft, so I like it.